my good friends. Welcome to tonight's episode of The Family Gaming Experience.
Dun, dun, dun.
Where we talk about gaming through the lens of family-friendly, maybe. That's the question we're going to be answering tonight is, Vampire the Masquerade, is it family-friendly? Can you make it family-friendly? I have a feeling the answer is going to be no. But
Of course you can.
I'm like...
Biting people and sucking their blood is a normal thing for children.
In certain respects, yes, that is.
I remember.
I was unaware that what you do were biters.
Yeah, we have 3 children. I'm well aware that they bite. So
They do bite. Thankfully, none of them really... Oh, man, I really did screw that up. Severely bite anyone at all.
There's a squirrel over there.
There is a squirrel, you guys. There are many squirrels tonight. It's bad because it's fourth quarter for me and I work in the benefits industry. So this is like the worst possible time of year. We're pulling stupid days and
So we get to
stuff.
be here with you, just relaxing, chilling, and talking about Hayley's favorite subject.
Dooms. No,
he's not here.
He's not here.
Vampires.
Yes, vampires.
You love vampires.
I do love
Vampires.
vampires.
Haley has been a vampire fan the entire time that I've known her.
We should do a really quick round table before we fully get into the topic and discuss our history or lack thereof of vampire pop culture.
I don't
Oh, okay.
have any connection with vampire pop culture before I met you.
That is... Okay, so Weston's going to be really fast. But before we can really get started, though, we've got to do our cute little intro.
Do you need some dragons?
We have our cute
It's
little
the
dragon.
dragon.
Go. Just do it.
To the dragons. There you had your dragons.
I love my little dragon. Okay,
There
Jerome.
we go.
So how did you get into vampires? Not just Vampire the Masquerade, but just like vampires in general.
Oh, vampires in general? Oh,
Yeah.
horror. Straight up. Like, I don't know what drew me into horror because horror's scary. And I was one of those types that had like, overactive imagination when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was not like I remember being a kid getting freaked out at one point, having a nightmare about an ET poster.
Oh dear.
Just because my mind went there. Like I used to have
Uh-huh.
this ET poster that sat. I never actually put it up, but it sat like up against the wall. So like still in its cardboard, cellophane, backing or
okay.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one night I had this this nightmare where I woke up and I sat up and I looked at it, and of course it was just ET, looking like doing a little finger thing,
Looking
and saying, "Oh, oh,"
freaky.
whatever.
Let's be honest. He looks
And
freaky.
then- He does.
He does look
Yeah,
kinda
yeah.
creepy.
But he slowly got like this really angry looking face in my nightmare and like fangs and like it freaked me the heck out as a kid.
Oh, that's so sad.
So E.T. turned into aliens.
Not quite like that. I mean, it still is an alien, but yeah, I got like a kind of a nightmarish face. Woke up and got freaked out. So I don't know what eventually drew me to horror,
Mm-hmm.
but naturally, vampires were a part of that, and I think I don't know. I was really kind of drawn to, in a way, and I hate to say this because there are. I'll call it what it is. There are some elitists in the vampire world, gaming world, I should say, that views how certain people, how people play the vampire game as what's called vampians. There's a superhero game called Champions, so that's their kind of pejorative term that they made up to make it like cheesy vampire, superhero game.
Oh, so they like want vampires to be
Evil.
true horror
Yeah, yeah.
gothic,
Exactly.
Dracula types. Okay.
They want to play up the story. They want to get real close to the camera and breathe heavy and just weird stuff.
Like that.
Yeah, exactly like that.
Wait, is
like
this
your
ASMR?
Like your Darth
I
Vader
didn't think
with
we had
asthma.
that type of Twitch stream.
Vampire ASMR.
Yeah, there you go. And then intermittently in your ASMR, you just go, I did not say blah, blah, blah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, funny story about that. I actually do say blah, blah, blah. Like, I legit do. I say it all the time. I'm just like, all those things and blah, 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 whatever. So our boys
That's
love...
kind of common, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's a normal thing that people say. But our boys love Hotel Transylvania. We have seen all 4 movies. I have personally sat through all 4 movies multiple times because they want to snuggle with me while they watch it. And that line, that running joke through all 3 movies is hilarious.
Because she does say blah, blah, blah.
Every time I say blah, blah, blah now, Weston's response is always like, I do not say blah, blah, blah.
It was you.
Adam Sandler, in my opinion, at his finest.
Wait, that's Adam Sandler?
That's Adam Sandler.
That's Adam Sandler.
I
yes.
did not know that.
Not in the 4th one. That's not Adam Sandler in the 4th one, but in 1, 2, and 3. Yeah.
But so vampires were just something that, especially in the 80s, when I think horror was kind of in a new heyday. Like everybody was trying to get like the new horror film or flick or whatever. We had several movies that came out that were just amazing. We had was it After Dusk? I think it was called. And then we of course Lost Boys was a really big one.
Oh my gosh, that is a gold standard for vampire movies.
You know, you had a hit of a movie when the saxophone player is like a legit meme at this point, like a sexy saxophone player who's shirtless and just up there doing his thing.
Well, I know the Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice came out in the 80s too, didn't they? I'm looking up the first book.
Probably, yeah.
Interview with Vampire.
I have to be honest,
The film was 94.
I have actually not seen Lost Boys.
It's so good. It's one of the very first ones that the dude from 24 was in, starred in.
Yeah.
Kiefer Sutherland.
Sutherland. Thank you. I couldn't. I could see his face in my head. Dusk Until Dawn. Yep, that was another one. Hi.
But that wasn't 80s. Dusk Until Dawn, I didn't really like all that much.
Well, and that was Quentin Tarantino too. And you have to have a very specific.
Mm-hmm.
He is a very specific type of director. I've never seen
100%.
it because of the sexual content and nudity. But
you're like, take it to VidAngel. VidAngel goes like opening credits, end credits.
I was about to say, like, the
bad.
things that I know about that show, there would be not a ton. There would be a lot in the middle and right near the end that would get taken out, and like it'd be super jumpy. Because that happened with Game of Thrones, where it was just super jumpy, and like we would have to kind of figure out, like, piece together conversations, especially with the dwarf, or excuse me, the little person character, Peter.
Oh yeah. Peter Dinklage.
Dinklage, thank you. Like half of his conversations were always with naked women, so like we would like have no idea what was going on when they ended the scene.
Why is this guy important? I never see him.
What's happening? Anyway, but yeah, Dusk Until Dawn is one I know that did become a staple though in the vampire
Fright Night
genre.
was another one.
Which one?
Fright Night.
Yes. Which, did you see the remake of that with?
I did.
What did you think of the remake?
I didn't mind it. I know there were some people. Naturally, there's revisionist history that people go back and they're like, "Oh, the first one was the best," and blah blah blah. But I kind of liked the remake. Mm-hmm. I mean, it stayed pretty truthful to the original. I liked the fact that they brought in. What's his name? Wasn't he a Doctor Who actor?
Yeah, it's David Tennant.
David Tennant, there you go. And they brought him in as the magician. And I thought he actually looked cool for what it was he was doing, the Vegas magician that kind of got looped into it all. So, I mean, it wasn't bad. It definitely wasn't bad.
Well, there was another one that felt very similar to that, but was like a YA version, which was the circus. Vampire Circus.
The Vampire's Assistant.
Yes, that one. Like, that was a really interesting one because it gave me such Fright Night vibes when I was watching it. And I did not expect the person who was cast as the vampire in that one, like that was weird for me because I had come from Interview with the Vampire. Like that was.
And then all of a sudden, the dude from Talladega Nights is in
yeah,
it. Like, not a vampire.
Like this is cognitive dissonance is happening right now.
Well, another actor that one of their early ones was a vampire flick is Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
Once Bitten.
Once Bitten. I saw that. That was another one I saw. That, of course, that was obviously comedy.
Yes, it was.
And that was a take off of a female vampire, which they're, they tried to say, well, they're going to feed from the inner thigh instead of like the neck, and otherwise, you start becoming invisible, and
which is weird.
And,
so
yeah.
Some of that.
It wasn't. I mean, it wasn't bad. It was Jim Carrey's first film. So it was what it was.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of vampire movies that are just not worth the film,
oh yeah,
the digital space that it was filmed on.
But I have a kind of a I have a love-hate for vampire films. I'll actually go out and watch some of the B-rate ones just to see if I can stomach it. But when they start making them into like aliens and whatnot, I can't really do it. Like Adrian Paul had one that was like that they turned out to be like these alien creatures that came down, and I'm just like, no. I gave it a shot because it was Adrian. Yeah, I gave it a shot because it was Adrian Paul, but because I love me some Duncan.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a no on that one. I don't even know what you're talking about, but that's just weird.
Oh, it was straight up B. Yeah, I mean it was a directed DVD, feature sort of thing that you would find at Walmart for $5.
Or nowadays in the dollar bin.
Well, but the one thing that
on Tubi.
Yeah.
The one thing we didn't get in the 80s that we needed to have gotten, although I guess actually it was the 90s when this happened, was the Nosferatu the musical.
Oh.
Gotcha.
That never happened. The song "Total Eclipse of the Heart"?
That was from that show.
Mm-hmm.
That was written for Nosferatu the musical.
Wait, what?
Wow.
30 Days of Night. Okay, so if we're gonna talk, so right now we're
30
kind of
Days
talking.
of Night is amazing, even though it doesn't stay super truthful to the comic book.
I never read the comic books. I never read the graphic novels. Are they comic books or graphic novels? I feel like those are interchangeable terms
it's
now.
comic books. Yeah, but it's comic books, but it's collected in a graphic novel format now.
I think the difference between comic books is generally the how much there is there. Like comic books are a lot thinner, generally coming out on a regular basis like that, whereas a graphic novel generally is going to be thicker.
It's pretty thick.
It's kind of the equivalent of a novella versus a novel.
Okay.
Well,
actually,
graphic novels typically are a compilation of that particular story run.
Yep.
So your monthly comic is going to be about 22 pages, and that story arc may last like 6 to 10 issues, usually like 6 issues or so, because that's like 6 months. Mm-hmm. And then they'll collect that into a story arc, graphic novel, sometimes also called a trade paperback.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I didn't realize that was kind of like the difference between those two. No, but I loved 30 Days of Night. I thought that was like the most interesting.
Well, and that's vampires horror. That is vampires. These are monsters that will eat you.
That was a horror movie too. Like that was such a good horror movie.
And that movie, because I know it's probably easier for people to say I saw that movie than I read that graphic novel, because it just is what it is. But since we're about ready to start talking about Vampire the Masquerade, that is a perfect example of a Sabbat pack.
So that's what Jeremy is?
Yes.
You guys. Freaking drama happening in Ashland by Night. We just talk about that. So let me give a quick rundown of like my pop culture experience. So I became fascinated with the World of Night, not the World of Darkness, is a little bit different, by L.J. Smith when I was young. So I read all of her novels that were out, and they all had to deal with witches, vampires, werewolves, shapeshifters. I loved her, and there was another author that was a couple of years older than me that I was so enamored with, because she was like 13 and I was like 10 or 11, and she had a novel published as a teenager, and I was like, oh my gosh. That was like one of the first times that I realized like you could write and like get a published novel, and it became an attainable thing for me at that point in my life, and I was super young still. But I actually have that first vampire novel that I ever read. It's on our shelf.
Oh, cool.
And that's like the entrance into the world of like this idea of the supernatural beings and creatures and stuff like that was at a very young age for me. And I went from everything that I could read in YA, and this was pre Twilight. This was pre anything really being
This
written.
is before it was like the fad for young tweener girls to read vampire books.
Well, and it was supernatural books, period. Like all of the books that were coming out were at that time were all like coming of age stories for young kids, and YA novels were very much like mysteries, or like they didn't really touch romance. That wasn't really a thing that happened. So I kind of like grew with the genre into what it's become today. And from that, where nothing, like there was 3 or 4 novels that I could read, which was why LJ Smith was such a big deal, because she was the only YA author that was writing that kind of stuff on a consistent basis. To I started reading things by the author of the Anita Blake series.
Anne Rice.
No, not Anne Rice. She did.
Oh, Anita Blake. Sorry, I know what you're talking about. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm looking it up right now.
She did a Fae series as well that I started reading, which
Laurel K. Hamilton.
Laurel K. Hamilton, thank you. And she would, so I like had such a drastic jump from like cute little YA novels that didn't really have any real sensuality
to romance,
to like hardcore, fully pornographic sex scenes. And I like didn't know what to do with it. Like I was like, this is my choice. Like this that doesn't have enough romance that I'm happy with, and then this, which is like not romance, is just sex, and I don't even know what to do with that.
Well, because you went from the clean YA, and then the only other people writing vampire stuff
were all adult novelists.
Yep.
So then I found Interview with a Vampire, which had highly sensual overtones, but didn't. Those first couple of novels, there wasn't really anything
too
overtly spicy. But that kind of brought me into that whole world of like the taking the vampire as a conflicted possible hero and possible villain, depending on how you wanted to write them. A lot of the vampires in my own writing as a novelist are very much in that same vein of Anne Rice and Lestat. Lestat is one of my favorite vampires of all fiction, because I love what she did with his character. But then, of course, there's Buffy. So then we start in the TV shows. Like Buffy came out. I wasn't allowed to watch it until I was a little bit older. And then a friend of mine had all of the seasons on DVD. So I got really, really sick at the age of 16, to the point where I was pulled out of school. And I went to 3 classes a day. That was it. And I just voraciously watched every single episode of Buffy, and then every episode of Angel, and like everything that I could get my hands on. I was so excited. I'd read the True Blood books, which the True Blood series is based off of. It's the Suki Stackhouse mystery.
Home Duveau is apparently an Angel fan.
Angel's wonderful. Angel is fantastic. I kind of got sick of Angel though after like season 3. I was so over him and his broodiness and his like, I want to be with Cordelia. I want to be with this person. I can't decide who I am.
I am broody. Well, I don't know. Was it before then that the broody hot vampire became the thing?
That was
before Angel. Was it a thing?
Yeah.
Or did Angel make the thing?
Yeah.
No, that was a thing before. Lestat, I feel like really started that. Yeah,
Interview with the Vampire really kicked that off. It was the long-haired, kind of troubled vampire that, you know, Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt kind of pioneered. And, you know, those who were a little bit deeper in the film, obviously not the book, but they're like, oh, but there's Armand. And you've got, you know, long-haired Antonio Banderas, you know, coming up close and whispering in his ears, because you asked the wrong questions.
He did so good. Oh my gosh, he did so good.
For what he was given, yes. I loved him as Armand.
And that was watching the film. I had never really envisioned any of these characters. Not really, because I don't read that way. I don't read in movie format, I get vague impressions, and I'm an emotionally based reader. So I jump from emotion to emotion to emotion. So I can tell you the emotional things that happen in a scene. I can't tell you like what it looked like. I don't even like describe my main characters. Like Weston's always like, well, I don't know what this person looks like. I'm like, neither do I.
I know what they feel like, but I don't know what they look like. Well, and on the other side of that though, like 2 vampires that come to my mind is if you have watched the Hellsing, the anime. That is a vampire that is like, I am a monster and humans are completely food.
Yeah.
They are something that I step over.
Is Van Helsing the one where it's Dracula?
It's Alucard.
Sorry, Alucard. It's Dracula backwards, but
yeah, it's Alucard. A good one in books is actually called The President's Vampire. Drum, you ever heard of that book?
That is such a good book series.
No.
President's Vampire
I'm
is an
actually not
interesting
a
one.
huge novel reader.
Okay.
Should listen to it while you work. It's a really good series.
The premise is that I think it was like Abraham Lincoln type era, which it's funny because Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter came later, but one of the presidents, they managed to catch a vampire and then occultly tie him to the office of the president in some magical oath. And so now he serves the office of the president as a deterrent. And so the book, it comes from the perspective of his handler.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, gotcha. Cool.
And it's so good. The way that the author builds it and creates kind of this world makes it so very fascinating. It's all like mystery, kind of like spy subterfuge kind of stuff. So it's not your traditional.
But he'll go tear the windows off, go tear the door off of a car and rip the person out of there and
scare them.
But it's very much in that there's no attraction to humans other than I'm hungry.
Yeah.
They looked at that. They look at humans the way we'd look at a chicken. And that's, you got this wide spectrum of how vampires see humans. And I think that goes right in with, how do you play Vampire the Masquerade? Because you can play the way that vampires interact with the rest of the human world in very different ways, I imagine, based on how you want to play that.
Yeah.
Well, right. So, in keeping with the topic of the show, and leading into how you kick that off, so the first thing you're going to need to do if you're playing Vampire is you're going to have to set that boundary. If you're going to try and actually play Vampire, you're probably not going to be able to get away with running a game for anybody sub 12 years old, depending upon their maturity level and how into theater they are. And the reason why I say that is because if they're into theater, they're into acting, and this is and you kind of need to be into acting a little bit, or the storytelling aspect for Vampire, way more so, not that that's a phrase, but
it is now
significantly more than you would a typical game like Pathfinder or Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
Pathfinder and Dungeons and Dragons, and to other extents, similar games of that nature, you can get away with, okay, well, let's go beat this guy. Okay, well, let's go talk to this guy. Okay, let's go buy this stuff. Like that is kind of the core of that game. In Vampire and many of their other storytelling games, it is way more cerebral, and it's way more hinging on the story than it is a dungeon crawl or stopping the big bad or whatnot. So a lot of times, a lot of your story is going to hinge based off of the characters, not the module you want to run, which is why you saw very few quote unquote module like stories in any edition of Vampire the Masquerade and any of their World of Darkness games. They had some, but nowhere near as many. They made their bread and butter based off of genre books that detailed a city or that detailed a political bent, to a character, or bloodlines of vampires. Well, so basically all story.
With it being so story driven, having the world developed becomes a big thing. That's like you look at our the way we do our Pathfinder campaign. We travel quite a bit. We interact with different, leaders and stuff like that. We're not going from combat to combat. We're not, doing things like that. And so you have to have a fairly well fleshed out world in order to make it feel like a real story.
Right. And one of the harder aspects to some of the, again, the fantasy-based Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, or even sci-fi games, for that example, is that that's a completely fantasy world. So you have to have those people, the players, or in this case, since you're doing it as a family, your children, getting their buy-in is going to require a little bit of study, and they're probably not going to want to do that. So that's going to require more output from you to explain what this city looks like, how it works, so on and so forth. The nicer thing about Vampire, if you're just taking it at its core respect and keeping it in the modern Knights, you can throw it in a town that your people are familiar with.
Yeah.
And there's an immediate buy-in because they've already got some visuals. They already kind of know what's going on. They're like, oh, okay, I get it. You're using cell phones. You've got cars, so on and so forth. You don't have much to worry about there. The harder aspect for Vampire, whether you're running 20th anniversary edition or V5, is the a lot of it comes down to the politics and the exploration of the vampires. My suggestion is if you're going to attempt to do it as a family, you're probably better off using one of the earlier editions like V20, because the rules built in you have an easier way of controlling feeding and taking of blood than you do in V5, in my opinion. In V5, a lot of that is dependent just purely upon the dice roll. And if you come up with a really bad die roll, you could be very hungry very fast, or near frenzy. Whereas in Vampire, the earlier editions, it was kind of like a hit point rating, and the closer you got down to lower blood, the more chance you had of frenzying and whatnot. And there were and it was a little bit easier, I think, to get away with not exploring humanity.
Okay.
Whereas in V5, as Seasonal Bard pointed out, the 5th edition, they really drilled down on that one. They really wanted you to explore the beast, what it meant to be human, losing that humanity, that sort of thing.
Which those are very adult concepts to really think about. I mean, as you get older, your introspection and you're thinking of yourself and your, the good and bad, or as, you would have in like psychology, the shadow versus the, egos and stuff like that. That begins to become a topic, a question of, am I a good person? Am I not a good person? As a kid, that you don't care. What you care about is like, I want that, candy bar.
I want
to by our children.
Get on this tablet
Don't get into
watch videos for 4.5 hours at night.
We have an issue with our oldest. He is, at this point, I have to say, he is addicted to electronics in a way, because he can't stop. And so if we happen to leave any device in a state to where it can be accessed and it didn't lock down,
he'll be on it all night long.
He'll get up at 1 a.m. and be on it until 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. until I get up.
Being a parent, awesome.
Apparently, last night, he had found out the password to my tablet, and so we got to find that. But that's the thing is, like, he doesn't at the moment, especially he is on the autistic spectrum, so it's a little more extreme with him. Doesn't question. He's like, I do. Like, I would think of it as a kid. Like, I imagine Gabriel. Okay, imagine Gabriel. Our boys, I don't know where they got this, but there's a bit of a violent streak in our children. Like, our youngest.
Think about me, though.
Yeah, well,
when I'm in a good place, I'm pretty aggressive.
Our youngest today, Haley's asking him, do you believe in aliens? Do you think aliens are real? He's like, yes, aliens are real, and they watch us, and if people are mean to us, they will kill them. He was like,
It's one of those moments where you're just like,
5-year-old.
Okay.
So I imagine our kids playing Vampire the Masquerade would be like, and I eat them, and I suck the blood, and I get it all over my face. That would be like our kids.
Our kids would do that. 100%. It's not a Blade Twilight crossover Homa de Vio. It needs to be a supernatural Twilight crossover with the Winchester brothers driving. You see baby driving into Forks, Washington.
Only
all that
as
needs to
long as
happen.
I get to see Dean stake Edward.
Anyway, sorry. Going back to Jerome and the differences between 5e and 20th edition, because you GM you're the storyteller for a 20th edition game set, right?
That's
the
correct,
Ashland
yes.
by Night
Yes.
games, which I am on Saturday nights. Which we happen to have a game on Saturday afternoon, you guys. If you would like to come and watch it.
Yep.
I'm
Hint,
getting
hint, nudge,
chased
nudge,
by-
say them all.
I'm supposedly getting chased by my psycho ex-boyfriend. Oh, hey, Necromaker. Hi, Colin. How's it going?
Hey, we got a necro here.
How's it
Hello.
going? You guys,
And we got
the best.
George in the audience already.
I know,
So
George is
cool.
here, which is awesome. The best Witcher cosplay Weston and I have ever seen, ever,
Oh, nice.
was done by the Necromaker.
This is the necro. Oh,
yeah,
yay!
this is Colin.
You know,
We met him Evermore.
Funny thing, while I'm getting
Cool.
our because we use our one of our iPhones as the camera for Hayley. While I'm doing that, it brings up the in the early screen, it brought up like most recent photos, and it was the photo of him on stage.
On stage.
At
We took
Fan Actions
pictures.
there.
We will send. I will send them. I will DM them to you on Instagram.
That's a good a good phone camera. So we've got those pictures there of you on stage.
Anyway,
But yeah, so the dang it, I forgot what I
keep
was
forgetting
saying.
what we're talking about.
We're talking about
Well,
vampires.
you were talking about your kid. You're talking about your kids playing vampire.
Oh,
but
that yeah,
that
they
was
would
why
like
that's
blood all over
that's
the
why
place.
that's why I think if you were going to try to run something for vampire, at least to keep a little bit more of the randomness out of it, because V5 introduced that level of chaos because of their the way they do their dice system now. So you may go a whole game without being completely threatened by hunger, and the next game you get threatened by it like 2 or 3 times just because your rolls are just that poor.
Wow.
It's that die that you have to, anytime you fail the hunger, you add that die. And I'm trying to remember how the mechanic works. I watched some videos on it a while back.
Yeah, they have an actual hunger die that gets subbed into your dice pools. So if you were going to attempt to do that, but the genre of it, with the exception of the fact that V5 kind of advanced some of the timeline, the genre of it is still very similar. So one of the first things you're going to have to do, if you have any interest in attempting to run it for your family, anything that's labeled Black Dog Games goes right out the window.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, because Black Dog, didn't they buy?
No. Vampire is for mature audiences only already. Black Dog Game is like taking that up to 11. Some of the World of Darkness books were labeled specifically Black Dog Games because it was the adult of the adult type content. They did that so their people, their fans would know, okay, well, do I really want to dive into this one?
So this is like they did
it?
Warlock, they did Spectre.
No. That's their meta attempt to explain it in game. So, like for example, if Hayley's
Trish is my character.
Yes, if Trish wanted to go to a LARP in game, she would probably be playing in a Black Dog game. Yeah, like I said, it's meta. But they actually made a Black Dog game imprint, and they labeled certain books like Montreal by Night, Clan Zemisi, the book. They had a Human Occupied Landfill was a Black Dog game. And the reason why they had these games labeled as such is because they were, like I said, adult of the adult. They were graphic.
Yeah.
In their explanation and language and things that they use. So there were things in those books that there's really no way you could involve a child in it.
It's like Montreal by Night and then Giovanni Chronicles.
I can't remember if the Giovanni Chronicles had a Black Dog Games imprint, but Montreal by Night definitely was.
Yeah, this one's got products released under Black Dog. For Vampire the Masquerade, you got Giovanni Chronicles 1, The Last Supper, Blood and Fire, The Sun Has Set, and I don't know.
Oh, I didn't realize that all the Giovanni Chronicles were under Black Dog Games. Oh well.
Werewolf the Apocalypse has got Freak Legion.
Yes, that was a particularly graphic book.
Just doesn't
so when
sound
it's like
pleasant.
So when it's like, okay, here's this, and this is rated PG-13, sometimes R, and then over there's those other ones that you go into the theater with the windows taped up.
Do you have experience with that, babe?
No, I've only heard.
He's heard stories from a friend of a friend who had a cousin.
Well, the thing is, those theaters don't exist anymore.
No,
so
they don't.
Those were all before my time, really.
It's true.
But so the first thing, obviously, you need to do that. Second, if you are wanting to play as close to vampire as possible, like the actual genre, you're definitely going to want to scale down the political climate.
Yeah,
and because it's going to be hard for a new player, let alone a younger teen, to explain to them how the politics work.
Yeah.
So really the best way to put it is, okay, well, if you want to play like Anarch Camarilla, you can, and just keep it at, well, these guys, if you're playing the Anarchs, well, the reason why you don't get along with them is they're just too stuffy. They try to enforce rules, and maybe they're really bad about it, like the kings and queens of old, and give it kind of a Robin Hood kind of flair. And you could get away with something like that. So Camarilla, you could do, you couldn't play Sabbat. You could not play Sabbat and have it a teen game. But you could say, okay, well, the
scary monsters. No.
But you could say, okay, well, the Camarilla is having to defend against these really, really monstrous vampires, and they're called Sabbat, and you can gloss it over, but really make it into more of a mean street gang, because they usually travel in packs, or just keep it like Lost Boys. They're monstrous for the monstrous sake. Yeah. They don't care about humanity. They want to be a vampire and not have any rules and be really mean about it. And I hate to say this, but a lot of people who don't dig deep into any of the vampire lore, which are a lot of Camarilla LARP players, that's how they see the Sabbat. They don't dig into it at all. So it's like, if you've already got that buy-in, you're good. You don't really have to go much further.
No, that makes sense. Well, because in the game that we're playing, I'm a Camarilla, right?
You are Camarilla.
Technically.
Among Anarchs.
Yeah, which is weird. But then I'm also, you guys, I'm still trying to figure it out. This is only the third time we've played. It's this Saturday. But I'm also like a performance-based person. I think, is it what
you are a Toreador?
Toreador. Okay, so yeah, it is what Joe wrote in the chat. So like she's fun.
So from what I'm understanding, like there's the rule set, but this is a situation to where the rule set is, and the game itself is very tied to the lore of a world. And technically you could play the rule set and not necessarily dive into the actual lore of the world with the clans.
I would actually highly advise you to, if you're playing with kids, to gloss over a lot of that. You could keep it very basic, just like, honestly, because it has a religious bent to it in and of itself, the genre of what they developed. Teach it like a Sunday school class, and just keep it very, okay, well, Cain got cursed. Cain got cursed because he killed his brother Abel. And then Cain went off into the world because he obviously couldn't be around all these other people. A lot of bad stuff happened to him. He got lonely and started making vampires, realized his mistake, and nobody else did. And so now you have a bunch of vampires that have this sort of understanding that doesn't always match. You may have become a vampire and didn't want to, and there's your story.
Yeah, so keeping everything really surface, because there is a lot of political back and forth. This is definitely created as an adult game.
Yeah, because that's the big thing, is the complexity. To play Vampire the Masquerade and really play it, there is a complexity of story. These are not we run up and we hit the goblins because they're
Not
goblins.
that we don't love that.
They hit the goblins because goblins bad. Whack.
Goblin bad.
I whacked them with my great sword, which is shaped like a panda.
Blackstone bad.
And that is, I mean, with anything, like you said, below 12, and honestly, if you're playing maybe a girl around 12, a boy around 16, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Maybe 12, 13.
Well, just
I mean, again, that's why I said gauge their maturity level,
Yeah.
because I know when I was 12, I probably could have pulled off something like this because I was already, although I didn't know it, I was already starting to come up with ideas for my toys to role play with instead of just playing with them like, ooh, I had dice that I was rolling with it and whatnot.
Oh my gosh, really?
It. Yeah.
Well, it's like
cool.
our oldest actually has a bit of a pull always to the macabre. Like he loves the dark and the
Favorite store, as soon as the signs start going up, he's asking every time we drive by, Spirit Halloween. As soon as those signs go up,
always.
can we go to Spirit Halloween? No, it's not open yet. Like in August. Can we go to Spirit? It's not open until September. As soon as it opens, then it's like every time we drive, can we just drop in really fast? I'm like, you've literally seen all of the things.
Well, and then like those times when he's gotten on the internet, when we're not.
When it's
there,
unsupervised,
it's
which
like
is rare.
Five Nights of Freddy's. It's like, these fairly dark horror-esque games. So he's going to, I think at some point, Michael will enjoy.
Oh, he'll love this stuff.
Yeah.
He will eat it up. So I have a question. As someone who does know the system really, really well, I remember, and this is purely for my own curiosity being stated, when Underworld came out, there was a whole kerfluffle between, like in the entertainment industry, news, whatever, between Underworld and Vampire the Masquerade. What exactly was that? Because I didn't know enough to know what was going on, but I just remember hearing that like there were accusations that Underworld ripped off.
Yeah,
Vampire
I was
the
actually
Masquerade
playing. I was playing in the official White Wolf chats at that point. So it made its rounds really quick.
Yeah.
With the fans of the game. Basically, what happened is White Wolf turned around and sued the group that developed Len Weissman and
Les Weissman,
the others. Sued the group for having their intellectual property stolen, and basically they based a lot of that off of the fact that the vampires and werewolves were clashing, and that the vampires had this sort of organization and the werewolves had this sort of organization. But really, even the fans of the games knew it wasn't going to hold any water. Primarily, and unfortunately, White Wolf was very litigious during this era.
Yeah, that's what Joe was saying. He's like, White Wolf is lawsuit happy.
Not so much now, I think, but I wouldn't put it past him. But anyways, back then it was more, as they explained it after the fact, it was more they were trying to stick up for their own IP. Because they felt it was close enough that they needed to try to take it to court, is ultimately what they end up coming back and saying. Even though most of their own fans, when they saw the first movie, said, okay, this is cool, but this is not Vampire the Masquerade or Werewolf.
Yeah.
Well, no, because I remember, if that's really all that it was, because I thought it had something to do with the way that like the elders like skipped through time. And so
that has nothing to do with White Wolf.
Okay, well then, because like that was the biggest thing. If it all, oh my gosh, that's so lame that they decided to get all uppity, because there's so many. That's a trope. I don't know when that became a trope in the supernatural world of fiction.
All the way back to Black and Whites, Dracula versus the werewolf.
Yeah, like I mean
that's literally where it started.
Yeah, Bela Lugosi. Like, hello, come on, people. It bothers me. It bothers me when people do. Speaking of Dracula, totally off topic. However, did you see The Invitation?
No, I don't think I did.
It's so good. It's even still in theaters. You should go see it.
It is
cool.
definitely a romance.
It is a Dracula movie.
Yeah.
It is not propping itself up to be anything other than it is. It is a B-level, but the characters' chemistry with each other is so good. I went back and rewatched it, totally legal and above board, and didn't find a site that pirated it. And I realized that there was only 20 minutes of the movie before it gets into the real meat of it, that the two leads, the male and female lead, interact with each other, but you believe that relationship so well that it's
Okay.
oh my gosh.
Cool.
I
And
get
this is a new movie?
it's it's new, and it came out a couple
felt
months
really
ago.
under the radar.
I'm also very behind when it comes to new movies. I'm a type of person, I know it's a little off topic, but I like going to movies with people, not by myself.
Oh, and I love
And so
going by myself. It
that's
bugs
why
me when
I
people
don't
talk.
go to movies a whole lot.
I throw popcorn at my friends when they're
Everyone's
with me.
pick for Rysand, if what?
Okay. I think I might be the only person that knows what you're talking about, and it would be the guy who played Dracula in The Invitation, Thomas.
Okay. Well, cool. I'll definitely have to check that out. A guilty pleasure for me, since we're back to talking about movies real quick, Dracula 2000.
Yes! Oh my gosh, Gerard Butler was so good in that.
It's loaded with a cast from top to bottom.
Oh yeah.
And it also it also plays up on my later in life, my theological horror fantasy. I love stuff that play off of that.
Mm-hmm. It was so
I like the fact that they made him Judas, and that's how vampires came about.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these mythos, now that vampires were kind of always a Eastern European thing, and that idea Bram Stoker brought over.
Well, it became, the Eastern European vampire is what became the mainstream one, but vampires existed in different forms throughout different cultures.
There's definitely stories going back to Egypt. They've read things that indicate.
Well, even in the Asians like that, the yokai.
Dracula Untold? What? How do you can't just drop that in the chat and then not talk about it.
Oh wait, have you seen it?
No, I love Dracula Untold.
We own it.
Yeah,
It is one of
great
my
movie.
But lowercase J before that dropped Dracula Dead and loving it.
No.
Yeah.
No. No. I don't
Check
like
my
my
cameras.
Dracula's funny.
But yeah, so back to the topics though, because we can go on and on and
I'm
on.
sorry.
over
We need
movies.
to start a podcast just about vampire things.
No, you don't need another thing on your plate, Haley.
That would
Okay,
be
so
fun.
from now on, the family gaming experience is just about vampires.
Just about vampires. Play.
This is why I knew this would be a good episode for Haley when she's like, I don't have time to figure out things talk about vampires.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Luke Evans is
Yeah, no.
also a very good pick
But
for Rysand. He's too old, though.
as some of the chatters have pointed out, so one of the big differences with the this vampire game are the clans, and that could also cause some problems for people who are just people who are thinking of vampires in general, but more so obviously kids in this sense, because some are going to be social, and kids, unless they're more mature, they're not going to be social.
No.
So playing those powers out are going to be very difficult.
That's true.
They're going to probably want to practice what a lot of people call bee-liturgy, which is if anybody has played Vampire for any length of time, it is thaumaturgy is what's called a blood magic, which that's another topic we can talk about in a second. But bee-liturgy is basically like the slang for I'm just going to beat somebody, but it's magical. Sort of thing. So I have a lot of strength, I have a lot of speed, beat you up.
That makes sense. I'm sorry.
Go react.
Okay, wait. You met him? Did you tell him he was the best Dracula that ever Draculaed? I love him. I am in love with Luke Evans.
It is a shame that
so
the
good.
Universal Monster Universe didn't
That didn't happen.
Yeah.
Which is really sad because it died.
They
because
were building
of Tom
up
Cruise.
to it. Yeah.
They They set it up so beautifully with Luke Evans. Luke Evans in Dracula Untold with this beautiful romance, this love story, a true Dracula you could get behind, and you just like, I feel for you, I love you, I am with you every step of the way. And then they freaking had Tom Cruise in The Mummy, which was the most horrible.
I still haven't seen it.
You didn't care about anybody. Everybody was jerks, and they were all out for themselves.
Which means that's not. I wouldn't blame Tom Cruise for that, considering like he can act. You saw Maverick. He can act. It's just a question of.
Yeah. Okay. But Tom Cruise critique here. He could act when he was in his 20s and his 30s. He is now in his 60s, about to hit 60. He has rested on the Tom Cruise character for too long at this point.
Ooh.
He can't act the way he could in his 20s.
Ooh.
You can disagree with me. It's totally fine. I'm up for debate with this one, but I'm right. So
I do have to ask, Jerome. So we talked about Dracula. We talked about different people who play Dracula.
Don't play with my heart, lowercase j.
Jerome, did you see the Netflix Dracula?
Netflix. Oh, the series.
The anime?
Yeah. No.
Yeah, there was a series on Netflix.
Castlevania was awesome, but
yeah, Castlevania was awesome. But that really
Dracula.
isn't like vampire per se. That's just straight up anime. And
yeah, it's
in
just
anime, it's like they take a genre and then it's all no holds barred.
Yes, it
That's
is.
pretty much how you write an anime.
It's like, okay, I want you to take this and take it to its extreme. Like at the end, you have literally Trevor Belmont fighting death itself.
Right. Yeah. That's why, like I said, yeah, that's pretty much what you do with an anime. But no, I think I saw part of the first episode and then I completely spaced out about it because other stuff was going on at the time.
What are you talking about?
This is the one, remember, where with the nun who's Van Helsing.
Oh, yes, I do
I would be
remember
interested in your
this
take
one.
on that, Jerome. So,
Yeah, I'll definitely
go watch
check
it.
that out.
You have homework now.
It's definitely a suave, sophisticated, but monstrous Dracula.
Yes. Okay,
Yeah,
but
that's what I heard.
okay, since we're still talking about this and not getting back to VTM, what about The Strain though? Did you watch that?
Got through. I think I got up to season 3. I think. I know I watched all of season 1, and I know I watched a good chunk of season 2. The Strain was amazing up until they revealed the main bad guy monster.
Yep.
That was so dumb looking. Like it was so horribly done that it threw me completely out. Like I had a hard time buying into the rest of the story after that. I'm like, wait, this guy is behind it?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
I felt the same like way. A Siamese cat got punched with like with like overly large hands, and he constantly has this backlit to his eyes for like no apparent reason that makes him look partial CG. And I'm like, I don't like it. I don't like it.
Yeah, no, I'm
but the
kind of
setup
in the
to
same
that
place.
was fantastic. Like they did a great job with that.
Right? So correct me if I'm wrong. The Strain, is that a Stephen King one though?
Of that I don't know.
Chat, I'm relying on you to know the answer to this question. I believe The Strain is Stephen King. However, I was going to say Salem's Lot, one of the only vampire novels I've ever read that scared me. One of the only novels I ever read that scared me.
No.
It's not.
It was not based on a Stephen King thing.
Okay. I was just wondering. It's not to my knowledge. Okay, yeah. Okay, the chat concurs. Because that was The Strain I felt like was so good
it was developed by Guillermo del Toro.
Yep.
Oh, that's also that makes sense because I love his work. He's incredible. But like that was a different type of vampire. So if you were gonna take that premise of an idea where it's more of an infection, that really is an idea that's like super separate from like anything that we've really seen in popular culture with vampires up to now.
Yeah, they treated it more like The Walking Dead initially, up until, of course, they solved their own problem. But that's what was so appealing about that initially, is that these guys were going to start turning into vampires, not zombies, vampires, kind of like in my opinion, from the Will Smith movie, a better version of I Am Legend.
Yeah, Joe the Frogman just brought up, give me the I Am Legend type of vampire.
I would love a true adaptation of that novella. I would love a true adaptation of that novella. It is so beautiful. The writing is incredible. But like, how do you do it? Because he is alone. So 99.9% of that movie that story is in his head.
Mm-hmm. It's
so
hard to translate
good,
properly that way then. So question, what was that one we
Good night, my dear. We will read into you when we are done here tonight.
Bringing this back though to Vampire the Masquerade.
Sorry.
Vampire the Masquerade.
So from what we've gathered, kind of I haven't played myself. From what I've gathered,
even though you have the Play Vampire Live Forever t-shirt on. Guys, I have my t-shirt on too.
It's just under the sweater.
She's just cold.
I'm just cold.
But the system you can definitely do, but you're going to have to water down the world like crazy if you are going
not
to play.
The world, no, but the vampire and the genre. The world itself is just modern society. It just, everything that you add into it is what you're going to have to work around.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can't water down the reality, but the water down the complexities of vampire society.
Yeah.
You're going to have to kind of avoid that. Not really dig into it. 5th edition with the way that the inner beast and stuff like that works is going to be a little complex for your young kids. So maybe go with the 20th anniversary edition. Quick question for you, just because I got some stuff up Joe. While I've been sitting here. Are the clans different in 5e versus 20th?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, they are?
Because the clans you're naming off aren't here.
Yeah, some of them are different, and I'll be perfectly honest. I'm showing some bias here. It's one of the big reasons why older players jumped off of the new edition, as opposed to continuing on, because for the most part, the faithful of the game had been pretty stringent about sticking with it. When they came out with V5, a lot of people just jumped off at that point because they're like, that isn't my vampire. Like the Giovanni got thrown into some group called the Hecate, which is like all of these death clans, which didn't make a whole lot of sense. Given
I just find it funny on the website. So
given the genre,
they've got art, like, character type art, 3 of them for each of the clans, and then also at the bottom when they've got the Venturae, there's one character.
You may be looking at a different version of Vampire. Make sure it's not Vampire the Requiem.
Yeah, Vampire Requiem is different.
No, intro to Vampire the Masquerade World of Darkness. I'm pretty sure.
But yeah,
I'm on worldofdarkness.com.
Most of the clans have remained the same. That they do have some differences with how their disciplines work, though. That's another thing that changed quite a bit.
I'm also pretty sure I'm on the right one, because at the bottom, this Venturae, Ventrue, the aristocrats. One of the 3 pictures is B. Dave Walters from the
LA by Night.
It's his LA by Night character sitting right there.
Oh.
Everything else is character art, and then there's his face.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
So you can play with family, but you are going to have to, general,
have to do a lot
base
of
yourself. You're gonna have to really think about your kids. What complexity of engagement and interaction can they do? Because this is not a go smash things, evade traps. It's funny because there's a lot of complexity in game mechanics on those, but a lot of the stories are fairly straightforward and simple.
Yeah.
Like they really are, because you're adding in the interesting part is not the story, it's the mechanics. It's the use of the mechanics and your skill abilities.
That's why Critical Role does so well.
Yep. Vampire the Masquerade, on the other hand,
at some point
from what I
tonight.
understand, game mechanic wise is fairly straightforward.
A lot of it tends to be, yeah. In both editions, a lot of that tends to be very straightforward. And I think that, again, going back to since most of the games are played in the modern nights, it's easier to get a buy-in because most kids or most people have either watched a vampire movie or have read like a YA novel.
Yep.
Speaking of novels, the Chicagoland Vampire series would be one of my recommendations. I've heard, I've
really
done quite a bit of research on those. Yeah.
Huh. That surprises me a little bit. I don't know why, but I'm kind of surprised.
Yep. But yeah, so most people will have that sort of, initial buy-in. You think, okay, well, the setting is the setting, but I'm playing a vampire, so obviously they're going to kind of keep themselves hidden, and you can take it from there. And then if you wanted to spin it and I hate to say it this way, but dummy it down a little bit, you could pull more of a Buffy type of series with it if your kids were more familiar with that, or you could pull an Underworld like that. I could totally see younger kids watching that, because that's not it's got violence and whatnot, but there's still a lot of parents that would allow that.
The first one is actually it's in my opinion, I think it's totally fine. Like if you're like 12, 13, Michael, yeah, he would be totally fine with that. Gabriel and Jacob, no.
That's fairly bloody.
It is bloody.
It's fairly bloody.
But do you know what's really interesting? Because it all happens at night, all the blood is like black.
Which makes
none of the blood is red. And like even when at the very end, spoiler warning if you haven't seen the first Underworld movie, when she slices his head, I mean, even that's like might be the only part of that entire movie that is like graphic.
So Seasonal Bards just said that if they were going to run a World of Darkness game for teens or kids, it'd probably be Hunter.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that is definitely something that would probably be an easier way to introduce them, because the Hunter now there's of course we talked about this off stream at one point. There are two different types of hunters. There's the hunter that just realized, oh my god, things that go bump in the night are real. I need to go get garlic. I need to go get holy water. I need to go get silver and some pew-pews and stop them. And then there's the imbued, who something has touched them and they are kind of supernatural themselves. And they see the supernatural for what they really are, and they see it as like this corruptible influence on the world. If you were to do just the straight up hunter, there's a lot of call for that in both books and media. And that would be a good way to introduce them to the dice system in either edition. It would be a good way to introduce them to the dice system, how the game flowed, and kind of give them a taste for some of the differences. Because obviously, as a hunter that wasn't in the know, they're like, oh, okay, we can get this guy. Just don't let him look us in the eye. And next thing you know, they're running around at rapid speed. They don't have that eye thing. And they're like, what? He's going to beat us up. He can move too fast. And then, so if you do that, then it keeps everything kind of hopping, and you can streamline the game without having to dive into much of the vampire politics. You can just kind of keep it very, very base in that sense.
Well, the vampire politics or the introspection, which there's a lot of that. I mean, look at your character, who has major issues with feeding and the embrace.
Yeah, there's definite conflict in our game between myself and one of the other characters, because she is former Sabbat and
I just got asked about the vampire computer game.
The video, yes.
Which one? Vampire the Masquerade Redemption or Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines?
Yeah, because Bloodlines is the one that just came out.
Beat them both? Well, it didn't technically just come out. The running joke behind Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines is every time somebody mentions it, somebody goes and reinstalls it. because it was a really fun game. So the older RPG, those are the only two RPG games that came out for Vampire. But I mean, you could use those if you really wanted to kind of introduce people to the. I mean,
how much
the
does
gameplay
it play on
dynamics
politics,
does it?
though?
Both of them touch on it a little bit. You get a good sampling of the different types of vampires and what makes them tick. The start of the first of Redemption, you are a crusader knight who is laid up in a church, and you end up falling in love with this woman who works at the church. She's I think a nun, or just a hospitaler, but I think she was a nun. And she gets taken away by vampires. Vampires in the medieval era, in the Dark Ages era, operated more openly. So it wasn't until later that they developed, or started to really push the masquerade more.
Yeah,
and so you're kind of a medieval. Yeah, exactly. So you're kind of a medieval hunter in the very beginning part of the game, and so you kind of run into a couple of different types of vampires, and then shortly thereafter, you get forcibly embraced.
Oh.
And so then you kind of get introduced forcefully into the world of being a vampire. The second one, Bloodlines, was a little bit more developed, and it was all set in the modern age. But same thing. It developed. That's right. The text ones. That's
Coteries
right.
of New York. Like you're going way
Coteries.
back, Joe.
Yeah,
We're going into the
Coteries of
way
New
back
York-
machine.
Yeah, Coteries of New York is one of the newer ones. That's all text-based. I haven't played those because I don't really I thought about it, but I don't really have any interest in playing them all that much. I played the werewolf one, which was kind of interesting, but more because I thought the music was kind of cool. I don't need to buy a game for music. That's just kind of my take, and that's one of the big appeals to that game. Otherwise, I mean, it's just text-based. It wasn't something I was really needing. I was looking forward to Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, and that got permanently shelved for some reason.
It did?
Actually, current news is that it is not shelved.
Oh, Weston's currently looking at it. Right
Yeah, I brought it up.
That's what they're claiming.
That's what
they're claiming. But everybody who follows it knows it's been permanently shelved at this point because they got into a spat with the developers.
Oh.
And then they got taken off, and then they've never produced anything since. They've put a lot of effort into other games. I'm not going to get too bitter here, but like we got Coteries of New York, we got Shadows of something or other, but 2 text-based games. We got a werewolf text-based game. Then we got this werewolf game that plays like a PS2 game. I was so hyped for that one, and I'm like,
it's just bad.
Yeah, it's just kind of.
That sucks.
Yeah, because apparently in July of this year, Paradox Interactive CEO said on Twitter that Bloodlines is still in development, and we'll let you know more when we are ready. But if they lost their team, pretty much what they're going to have to do is bring in and find a new dev team, which means you're pretty much starting from scratch.
Brand new again.
I mean, you've got documentation, but at the same time, it's...
Weston understands these things because he is a product owner of a software.
Yeah. So it's
and as Seasonal Bard said, Earthblood is a mess, and that was the werewolf game. Yes, Earthblood is a mess and repetitive.
Folks are forgetting. Oh my gosh, this is crazy because there's this whole world, because I don't really do video games. I think the closest I get to really playing video games is when I sit down and play Diablo with Weston. Or next week on stream, because Weston's going to be gone and I'm going to be streaming me playing Diablo. You guys can come laugh at me.
Woohoo!
It's a lot of fun. Weston says I'm actually
things.
very entertaining to play with because
she is very reactive.
I talk a lot.
To what's going on screen. So what we're going to kind of say then on the question, because I just want to let you two go off on Vampire
Weston
Talk.
is very focused on the question.
Well, we said we would answer a question. We said we would answer Vampire the Masquerade for family. Gauge your children and their ability to handle complex social interactions, because that's a lot of what this is about. A lot of this is about complex social. The excitement of Vampire the Masquerade is in the interplay between characters, not in smashing things and, big dragons and stuff like that.
Yes.
And so
Killing people.
you need
killing things, saving people, the family business and all that.
Well, that's Hunter the Reckoning. So maybe if you play that, but there's a lot of complexity there. So kind of gauge your child's ability to handle complexity. Mm-hmm. Don't generally do it until they're a teenager and able to handle some of these things. If they're younger than that, guess what? A friend of our channel, TTRPG Kids, has a list of spooky type TTRPGs that you can look at to get this type of a thing.
I think we should play 3 goblins in a...
We still need to play that. Yes, we should. Like one I found was Draculola. You play as a kid monster. So this is like what's that show our kids watch? The
Vampirina or Monsters? Little Monsters.
Little Monsters is what I was thinking of. So you can get this one. You play kid monsters as little heroes in their creepy world. It's 64 pages of rules, characters, settings, monsters, guides, and creative tools. So, yeah, Draculola, a little vampire girl who is your friend, wants to make her spooky home of Zitterstein a better place, and you can help. So there you go. You get to play.
That sounds like Vampirina.
It does kind of sound like Vampirina Ballerina.
Vampirina.
The other one I thought was funny right here is the Monster Adoption Center.
What?
Game. It's a little game. MAC, Monster Adoption Center, is a rules-like TTRPG designed to create a lighthearted and wholesome session. So you adopt a little monster, and then you've got to play with them.
Can we please play this? Can we please play this with the boys?
This is where I'm saying, if they are that young to where the social complexities, you know what? Go find a more... there are plenty of other games out there for younger kids. You can find some spooky ones. They've got like I Am a Witch, which is where you get to play. Here's one, Numbskulls, skeletons pretending to be humans.
There are TTRPG Kids, and I just dropped the link in the chat. They are so it's a kind of a one-woman operation, and she is really digging into the world of TTRPGs specifically for children and for raising children in the world of TTRPGs. And she's got some incredible compilations of different types of TTRPGs. She does interviews with people. She also has a compilation list of audio like actual plays that you can kind of peruse through and see which ones would be good. In terms of audio plays, if you're wanting to figure out how to play Vampire the Masquerade, Jerome, you would know better than anybody else on this stream. Where should they go? I mean, besides Lost Tribes Gaming.
You should go watch Lost Tribes Gaming.
You could do that if and I don't know content-wise if you could pull it off, but you could also go watch New York by Night, which is the official game that they run over on the World of Darkness site. I don't know, I would not advise anybody to you send kids to our early seasons of the game. It was far more rated R than it is now.
It's a little, there were some life changes. There were some shifts that happened.
Yes, there were some changes, and we'll just leave it at that. No, I mean, it's still all good, but it's just not something I would direct kids to. But the later stuff now, like season 4, season 5, yeah, definitely. Yeah, there really isn't, because it's stated as a mature game. There really isn't anything else that I could think of that you would want to point them to. If you do, I would say just watch them first.
Yes.
This is a situation where you as the dad or the mom go find out how to play.
Yeah. Go find one first. Go watch it, because what you're going to run into is the content. Like in some cases, some of the streams will openly state, hey, if this triggers you, or yada yada yada, or if you're offended by this kind of content, then you may want to hit mute, or you may not want to watch. They give their own like PSAs and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, trigger warnings are a really big thing now.
Yeah. So if you see a game that gives any sort of warning like that up front, probably you don't want to watch it with your kids.
Yeah.
If you don't, then you might want to watch the game with your kids and just, well, not with your kids, but preview it first to make sure that there's no objectionable language. Because one of the things you're going to find, and this is just true of any live stream that you're trying to get, or not live stream, but actual play, I should say, that you're trying to get used for research. There isn't any real rating system for that sort of thing. And people just talk about whatever frequently. Yeah. So it may be better that if you need help doing it, just watch something like a tutorial on it and then kind of wing it yourself, because you're already going to be playing a stripped down version of it anyways. It's not going to require you to know everything about the game at that point. So you're kind of doing yourself a favor in that sense of not digging in completely into the rules. So that's probably what my suggestion would be, whichever version you use, but I would not advise using V5 for kids, just because it's like a little bit more. It's not that they upped the adult rating, but it's the exploratory nature that they took, and the fact that the dice drive specifically the feeding of it. And I think when you feed, you actually kill, whereas in the later or the earlier versions, you can just feed a little bit. You don't have to kill your subject.
I remember you guys talking about that, I think on like our first game.
Well, from what I remember, having dived into it, because we were thinking of playing it at one point. Yeah, depending on how many dice you, how do they, I don't remember what the mechanic is called, but the number of hunger dice or whatever that you've got, like you might completely, you're done.
Well, and it's interesting because it does take a level of autonomy away from the player of like, what do they choose to do? But at the same time, it would also, like, if you're playing a character like my character right now, she's very anti-feed from humans kind of individual. She will basically not. And we haven't been confronted with it yet, but I have a feeling she would probably let herself die first.
Which that won't happen.
Which that wouldn't happen.
Right. You're just going to frenzy and then do it anyway.
Yeah, I know. But that's like that's her mentality.
Right.
Is like, I would rather die than feed off of a
which that's a great explore. Yeah, that's a great exploration of humanity.
Yeah.
And you know how vampirism, this curse, affects you as an individual, which you could dive into with the kid. But you're probably going to want to try and pull it into some sort of parallel somewhere. Okay, well, this is kind of what happens if you make a bad choice and you keep trying to go with the bad choice, or something like that. Like, if you're going to do that, at least try to G.I. Joe up, the PSA at the end. So that way you've got some parable or something in the story you can pull back and teach your kids something out of it, as opposed to just playing mature game light. Yeah, I think you can definitely use it with that idea, because I feel like with like Pathfinder and D&D, it's very much like the traditional D20 system games. It's very party centric, cooperative gaming, figuring out how to play together, how to, how does my actions affect others, where VTM is very much more of a like, who am I, what do I want, and do I change at all because of the people around me, or the vampires or whatever around me. So it's like, I really enjoyed that aspect of it, because it's so role play heavy. Playing Pathfinder with Weston, where, I can get my battle axe out. Okay, it's a great sword.
Great sword.
But,
Big difference.
By the way, I would just like to say, I think that there needs to be a great sword right here on my wall. Right here? Right here. There needs to be. Stop it. That's not a great sword, though.
No, it's not. It's just my sword.
You're like, it's my sword. I have a sword. But I just, like, if you want to contribute to the donate to Hayley's sword fund.
We've got a long sword upstairs.
It's wood.
No.
Yes.
Mine.
That doesn't count. It's not a great sword. I want a
that's why I said we
freaking
have a
clay.
long
I
sword.
want a clay. I want a claymore. I want.
And it doesn't have the tag that says "Belonga Hayley" on
Yeah.
the
No,
bottom
it doesn't.
She wants
That's
a
the most important thing.
Zweihander. She wants a freaking Zweihander.
I
Which
want-
takes out horses.
I want a Scottish Highlander sword.
Which, in fairness, they did have them in Moab when I was there. So
Did they really?
yeah,
Oh,
they did.
I'm so jealous. On the drive from Arizona, they stopped in St. George, and there was a randomly Scottish Kilt Festival
Because why
that they
wouldn't there
went to.
be?
Because why wouldn't there be in October in St. George? Like, that's so weird.
It was cool. We went for Chinese. I walked away with the sword.
With the sword.
And Celtic food.
I
we go.
love that so much. I want to just randomly stop somewhere.
But
and go to
I
a
will
Celtic
say,
festival.
keeping it back on topic, I will say because Vampire is so roleplay heavy, you're gonna come up with opportunities, or at least in my opinion, more opportunities
Mhm.
for teachable moments
Yeah.
with your teens than you necessarily would with Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep.
Or that type of game, because
Mhm.
the idea behind Pathfinder and Dungeons and Dragons, one of the first correlations, especially kids make, video games.
Yes.
Yes.
And in video games, you have you have really no existential consequences.
Nope.
Unless you start getting to something like a GTA type of game that has, the stars because you're getting in trouble sort of meter.
Yeah, but then everyone's
Most
just
games is
trying
like-
to
You
get
guys,
the stars.
I'm going to say something very
Right.
controversial right now. Very controversial. And I have felt this way from the very beginning. So if you feel this way, or if you don't feel this way, please know that I'm still your friend and I will still love you. I think GTA, Grand Theft Auto, and all of its iterations are straight up evil. There
Fair
you go.
enough.
I think what the big thing I do see is Grand Theft Auto and some games before that, and the open world game situation has created a situation to where it is you go into the video game and I can kill whoever I want. It's like, go ahead, play Skyrim.
Yeah.
And people play to where they literally just go around killing every NPC because
See,
like,
and I
I
think
can do
that's
this.
kind of wrong too. However, in Skyrim, you're not receiving money and points and
They all drop loot.
accolades and whatnot.
Yeah, they do drop
for-
loot. Yep.
Well, that's different.
But then again, you kill random person, the guards all come after you.
Yeah, I'm like, there's actual consequences to being a horrible person in those games. In GTA, it like
Yeah.
straight up, and games like it are asking you, be a horrible person. There's no consequences. There is no way that that's healthy. There's no way that that's good
Right.
for your
Well, it's
psyche
like you got the
or
whole,
your
you know,
soul.
D&D murder hobo, idea that began. Is,
No,
Yeah.
I
a
also
lot of
hate
that just comes from a DM that's not going to impose consequences.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of kids are going to come from that mainframe, or that not mainframe, but that frame of
mentality.
mind.
Yep.
Yeah, that mentality coming into D&D because they're like, oh, okay, well, I can just do whatever, because that's the big appeal of a role-playing game. And you don't, and so you could get away with it in a Pathfinder or D&D game because of the way it's made. And if you don't have a solid GM who's going to hold your feet to the fire, which you could just skip a town and you're fine. But the inherent nature of Vampire, that's kind of already tracked. So there's penalties to your character and your humanity rating if you do that. There are penalties to the city you're in. People are going to remember you went murder hobo in the city. That's not good.
And
They're not going to
sometimes
trust
vampires get very mad. And you hear about
And
it in the game.
And then you quickly learn why exactly there's analogies to The Godfather in games like Vampire. Because your character just suddenly gets cement shoes and you're never seen again.
It's true. It makes sense. Well, it's been very interesting because, there's hints of that. There's conversations that other players have had as I've been kind of interjected into the game. But there's conversations that are having, or they're referencing things that happened in the past. And we can't do XYZ because remember what happened last time. And we had to do this whole cover up thing. And that kind of stuff is really interesting to listen to as someone coming in and having not really experienced VTM very much. It's actually kind of a refreshing idea that you're staying in the same place. We're in modern day, which makes it much easier to connect to like pretty much instantly. And like I'm hearing these conversations, and it's like it takes it from vampire is scary and blood and blah to like these people, these characters, these creatures, they have lives that they have established and a world that they've established, and why the masquerade is so important. And I think that really does go along with like if you have teenagers and you're trying to teach them specific lessons in a safe environment, VTM is a really, really good one to use because you can teach those lessons where the consequence or the real life consequence is incredibly low. So, yeah. Anyway, even if you wait, what? Yeah. Even if you're dead, you still got to find a way to pay rent. Seriously.
This is truth.
Seriously. Yep. I feel like that needs to be like a t-shirt or something for VTM. It's like you don't get out of paying rent just because you're dead. Like legit, it never stops. Anyway, Weston, I believe you were about to say it's time.
I was?
Oh, you had that energy that you were about to say.
No, it is not time yet. You guys can continue to geek out on your vampire hearts.
It's true. Well, have there been
5 minutes?
For another 5 minutes, and they're pulling back. Have there been any novels written based off of the Vampire the Masquerade world?
Yes.
Okay, that was quick.
There is the main line, which you can tell because they've all got green covers. Then there was the Dark Ages line, and they're all delineated by the clans.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Some of they're not all the same writer, but they do all kind of follow the same story. So some of them are kind of hit and miss. Others I felt were amazeballs.
Okay, so which ones did you love the most? And we'll drop a link in the chat.
Of the vampire novel, again, I'm not a big vampire novel reader, or I'm not a big novel reader. But I did read some of them. I really liked the Giovanni novel.
Okay.
I think it was the Zemisi one. It's been a while since I've read them.
Oh, there it is.
And I think I got the Ventru one as well. And then the Dark Ages one, I got the Assamite and the Cappadocian one because they were story-wise they lined up back to back, and some of the characters carried over.
Okay, cool. Because I feel like that's also a really good way to learn.
Oh yeah,
systems is via the novels that have been written based off of them. I know Pathfinder has a couple official ones that were written.
They've got a bunch that came out with first edition. They just haven't really dived into it at all in second edition.
And I know we're talking about Vampire here, but the comic books for Pathfinder, they rock.
For Pathfinder?
They did do comic books.
Yes.
They did?
From Dynamite Comics. Oh yeah.
I did.
They were awesome. That. And the cool thing about the Pathfinder comics is at the end of each comic, they had a map or a character sheet or something that was tied to that particular story.
That's actually really cool. I did not know that.
Most of them use the same Iconics group that are in all of the art. They're in your Adventure Paths art. They're in your, they're all over the place in that stuff. They've kept with those same barbarian, the same, halfling bard, the same, for everything.
Yeah, they sure did.
I didn't know that.
But as far as Vampire is concerned, Vampire has had some comics. I've heard some hit and miss comments from their most current line that they did. I know they had 2 that were in black and white that were put out by... I can't remember the name of the company. It was an indie press company. But they weren't bad.
Oh, okay. I see what you're talking about. So these are like clan novels, like written about the clans and members.
Well, they're typically written, again, it's an ongoing story. So there are characters that go through each of them, but there are characters that appear in each novel that are kind of tied to that particular clan that will pop up.
Yeah. No, I'm seeing there are a lot of novels too.
The Giovanni one was one of my favorites. I liked it a lot because one, it looked at the dynamic of the mortal family, because the Giovanni have mortal fam. They're one of the only vampire types that have They come from a family, and they have mortals that are Giovanni that have no idea what the family is really about.
Oh,
and
they
then you've
don't.
got some more. Yeah, they have no
know
clue.
They're vampires.
Nope. They just know that that's their great aunt Isabel that never really seems to age, and they only see her, and they only see her like occasionally on a holiday.
Do you know that theme, that character that's kind of like that in the Anne Rice in the Vampire Chronicles? They
yeah. I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, a horrible portrayal of her in Queen of the Damned. Everyone was horrible in Queen of the Damned, but it's still a really fun movie to watch. I still watch it every once in a while. But
Soundtrack rocks.
Soundtrack
100%.
is unbelievable. That soundtrack is like, that was my life for like 2 years, that music. I made it my entire personality for a little while. But that her character, like she took her, what most other vampires saw as like a curse or something to get through being a vampire. She saw it as she was a guardian of her mortal family. And she would watch over her mortal family. And like, there's always the stories of her when she was always looked the same, but it was always the different people. And yeah, I loved her storyline. I feel like that's what I would do with immortality.
So with the Giovanni, they've got that family element, but then they have some of the family is the family, quote unquote, as in like mob. And the mob vampire, and they're mob vampires. And then there's the other side of the family that is heavily steeped in necromancy.
Oh.
And so it's this kind of really cool dichotomy within the family of some mortals don't really know what's going on, others kind of know what's going on, and then there's the ones that are tied to necromancy that have a good understanding of it. And so they kind of play up on that in that particular novel. And then they also play up on the losing your ties to humanity. Because I don't want to give it away, but one of the characters in that particular novel is his kind of internal monologue is slowly having problems dealing with all of the ongoing craziness of what his unlife is kind of unraveling. First from being in the mafioso sort of thing, and then exploring more of what the vampire life is really like, and he's just starting to lose it. And so that's one of the reasons why I like that book like a lot. That
is intriguing to me. Like, that's something that I might want to watch.
And speaking of that, of Giovanni and the family, I think it's time that we end this episode of the family gaming experience.
That was a really good segue, babe. I'm so proud of you.
So, sorry, lost my voice there for a second. Thank you all so very much for being here with us on this discussion, talking about vampires in general and Vampire the Masquerade. So, you can play it. You can play it with family, but just
we really don't
leave some things out if they're young. And you know what? If they're little kids, go on TTRPG Kids and find some other spooky game to play with them.
Yes, please do that, because it is the spooky season and it's going to be fun.
Yeah, they've got a list that they released for October of spooky games, kid TTRPGs. So
and 3 goblins in a coat, cloak. I think it's 3 goblins in a cloak. That one, oh my gosh. It is really, I thank you so much for joining the stream and hanging out with us for a little while. It's like all of you guys, thank you so much. Any of the new people, or if you're returning and you haven't been for a while, it's so good to see you. Hold on, let me see if I can see everybody. Okay, we've got George, we've got Sylvie, we've got Brittany, we've got Joe, we've got Colin, our new friend. Jerome's on the screen. That doesn't count, and we're on the screen, so we don't count. Weston, do you see who it is?
I do.
Dooms! We did that totally spontaneous. That wasn't
totally
organized at all. And then Seasonal Bard. I don't know your actual name, and that's totally fine. You don't have to tell me, but yeah. Maybe
It's
you guys
it's
don't
SB.
want me to say your actual name.
She might not.
I
they might
never
not,
thought
Haley.
about that. You guys, I'm really sorry.
You've been outed. Sorry.
You've been outed.
The world
I will
all
not
knows.
dox you. I will not dox
You're
you. I
gonna,
swear.
Haley. At this point, you're gonna have to do like the Romper Room sort of like intro from way back in the day. That TV show. Basically, it was this woman who had a kids show that was kind of like a 30-minute Sesame Street sort of thing.
Uh-huh.
But the big thing she would do is she would hold up this mirror in front of her face that didn't have the mirror in it anymore. It was just the plastic shell.
Uh-huh.
And she would say, "Romper Stomper, Domper Doo, tell me who." And basically, and she would throw out random names of people that she could supposedly see. And it was a big deal, obviously, if you're a kid and she said your name.
She said your name.
And she's like, because then that meant she saw you, sort of thing. So.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
So thanks for joining us, Steve, Joe, Charles,
James,
John.
Why are they all men?
I don't know. Stephanie, Brittany's.
Yeah,
Mary?
it's not just one. It's Brittany's.
Britney's. All the Britneys. All of them. The entire.
All the Brittany's.
Anyway, thank you so much for hanging out with us today and talking about one of my favorite topics, which is vampires. Jerome,
Yep.
I'm not kidding. We need to do another. We just need to geek out about vampire movies. Would
Sure.
you guys like that? Would that be a fun episode? Just talk about vampire pop culture.
We'll go ahead and pull in some videos, some clips,
I would
some pictures
freaking
and things like that.
love that.
Go to town on vampire stuff, or we should do a watch party of a vampire movie, and have everyone on and you can watch. You can watch something like that.
I had an idea for a watch party earlier today. You guys are
Yes,
weird.
we
yes,
are.
we are.
But you already knew that, Brittany.
I was about to say you just spent the weekend with us, sort of. Well,
I was gonna
the
say,
day.
don't judge us.
No, no judgment. No, we should do a watch party of the Rings of Power, but do it from the perspective of a TTRPG or PGer, and all of the things they do in the show. We're okay, that would had to have been a DC 35.
Well, Galadriel's just a
and
level 20, fighter
with the lowest charisma possible.
No, she convinces them to do lots of things.
So that what would you rate Feminem then?
Feminine. What?
It's that girl with the black fingers that was chasing after the stranger.
She has not gotten to that. She's watched one episode.
I've watched the first episode.
Oh, you haven't seen that? Okay, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. She just looks
Yes.
like a female Eminem with a robe kind of
That's
thing.
a woman?
Yes.
Yeah. They're all women. I'm not too sure
What?
Why?
I've watched the whole thing, but I don't know what their whole thing even really supposed to be. But yeah, they're three women sent down from the heavens on a quest sort of thing.
Oh, they're
They
not
don't
from
talk a
the
whole
heavens.
lot, so it's hard to say.
You have to, honestly, I had to Google a whole ton of stuff in the world of Middle Earth to understand what was going on in some parts there.
I just think that would be a super fun watch party. Just if you have Amazon Prime, you can join us and we just
Well, it needs to be a bunch of watch parties because that's, each one's over an hour long.
Yeah.
Well, we could do
But I need to go to
I'm
bed.
sorry. Wes
Haley
needs to go to bed. I need to go to bed because we both are crazy in Q4 right now. Thank you so much for joining us. In terms of what's coming up, Friday night, Weston and I are doing our actual play of Pathfinder, the second edition. It's called the Scions with Abby from Tomes of the Chaos Bard and Julian, who was here in the chat earlier, from Everyday Superhero Cast. This is kind of near the end of the story arc that is including them, and we're getting very close to the end of our campaign. So come hang out with us and stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then next week, tell us Saturday. Jerome, give us the deets about Saturday.
Saturday we have Ashland by Night Blood Ties. It's going to be our second episode this Saturday, which is the 8th. No, it's not the 8th. It's 22nd.
Yeah, it's
22nd. So we're going to be kicking off at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. for Mountain Standard Time, for those folks in Utah. And that's going to be Haley and I and some other guests from my other Ashland game. So we should have
At least
Dale, Dale and Shelley, I think, should actually be there. So
Okay, cool.
No, we remember the 22nd because the next day is our anniversary.
That's the other cool announcement is our 14-year anniversary is on Sunday.
Woohoo!
14 years of marriage.
I know, 14 years of marriage.
Marriage.
Marriage is what brings us
Together.
together.
Well,
for those of
technically
you who
every episode of this show.
every single day. For those of you who are wondering, we do look very young. Weston looks a little older than I am because he just had a birthday. Shout hooray! But
I'm an old
we
man.
we were married when I was 21 and Weston was 23, so we are still only in our 30s.
Only.
Wow.
Only. I know.
Good job.
I know, right? It's like kind of amazing.
And we
have-
still love each
and
other.
we love each other enough to work literally back to back and with each other 24/7.
And then stream at night.
Stream at night. Like I don't know how that happened. I married my best friend. Next week Weston is going to be out of town, so our normal streaming schedule is still going to be Wednesday, Friday. But as I said earlier, I am going to be playing Diablo 3, and you guys can come watch me. I don't even know what it is I'm going to do because I'm going to probably die because I'm playing by
I just got to
myself.
show her how to even hook it up and actually stream.
I love
But
Diablo, though. I do love it. It's a fun game to play. So come hang out there. And remember, if you're playing with your family, we don't
No.
have a tagline. I don't.
Yes, we do.
We do. What's the tagline? I don't
It
remember.
only takes two.
No, and thank you for being part of our
Our
family.
family. There we go.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, you guys.
Good night.
Oh, wait. We have to raid. Raid. Don't stop. We have to raid.
We have to raid.
We have to raid lowercase J.
Oh,
Okay, we have to
Because
go.
he left and I told him we would raid him tonight.
Okay, so I'm going. Give me a second. I will.
3. Yeah, Diablo 3. I love Diablo 3. I played Diablo 1, like, when it very first
2
came
was
out.
better.
Well, okay, have an opinion about it. Jeez.
Because it was.
I do like number 3, though. Like, it's fun to...
I don't see him currently
Is he
streaming
not
anymore.
live?
He's not live
Lowercase J?
anymore.
yeah, he's on.
No, he's
Lowercase
right there,
J's on.
yeah.
He's
WWE
currently playing WWE
2K22.
2K22.
Oh, there he is. Okay, there he is. Found him. And here we go. We can start that raid.
So jump in, join in, go over, say hi to him for
7,
just a couple minutes,
6,
and
5, 4,
all that
3,
jazz.
2, and
Good night.
good night to all.